You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have an exciting show planned for you. Why do you ask? For one, not only do we have one guest, we have two. And not only that, but it's Steven and Sandy Lieberman. They are both the founders and now co-owners of Artemis Defense Institute. And I'd like to welcome you both to our show.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's exciting. Let's get right into it. I love to have founders on the program because it allows me to talk to you about your origin story. In other words, take us back in time. And thank you, Mark, for making a comment. It's great to have you listen in the listening audience. We always like to kick it off with audience participation. So if there's others out there who would like to comment, feel free to post it and Haley will bring it to our attention. But let's go back to the guests. What was the inspiration or motivation for you two to start Artemis?
And truth be told, it was a compromise between the two of us. I believe I wanted to open up a bakery. And Steven was working for the family business at the time. I had set enough money aside for opening the business. I had gotten certified. And then he came home and said, family business is selling. So I guess I'm going to come bake bread with you. And I thought, there's no business in this. So he then said, well, why not sell guns? And I said, I have no interest in selling guns, but I'd be open to training individuals. And I think that's kind of how we started. We started doing the research on different ways to offer firearms training. And that just kind of started the ball rolling.
We were, I should say, you know, we both had been vested within the Second Amendment community for several years. And Sandy, when she first said to me, look, I'm not interested in selling firearms, but I am interested in creating a training environment for people. She was originally focused primarily on military and law enforcement training, and she wanted to utilize technology as a means of sort of getting our message across and utilizing technology for the purposes of training, as opposed to just going to the range and shooting, you know, type of thing. And nothing like that really existed. I mean, there was no pre-established business model. So she was really kind of the pioneer. And actually, her first person that she had to convince was me.
Was this guy?
You know, I mean, I was actually somewhat antagonistic to the idea because it wasn't part of the training orthodoxy.
I think, as I recall, I had to coerce him into a trip out to Arizona where we would be able to see the systems. But I kind of covered it up with, hey, let's go shoot at the Scottsdale Gun Club. And then before we get there, though, I kind of set up this appointment. Just go with me and we'll go right after. We never made it to the Scottsdale Gun Club.
Yeah, we ended up, working on the simulators that our vendor had, produced for us. And Sandy really kind of took the lead, created the business model, and we were off to the races.
What a great collaboration between the two of you. I love the energy and the conversation so far on the talk show. Haley, if you could bring Dr. Lucas Dyer back, his comment. So
hello?
I guess he knows you, but he misses you both. So I'm glad he's listening to us.
We miss Lucas.
We miss him. Yeah. He was one of our first instructors when we opened our doors, and he's been an intricate part of helping with the development of the curriculum.
That's fantastic. And I see there's another comment from David.
Oh, excellent. Hello, David. Okay. I think we've got a lot of our members here on the show. Which is excellent.
So thank you for letting them know that you're going to be here live, and someone else we still love to try. Oh.
that up.
Okay. And there you go. Look at that. I don't know if everybody knew you had a heart set on being a baker or not, but it's never too late, Sandy.
Never too late. Although I think I'm in better shape because I did not open up the bakery.
Okay, so let's talk about Artemis Defense Institute and help us to understand who you help, what you do for them, what problems are you solving, and then describe for us the sort of people that get the most value from your institute?
Well, okay. So as I was saying, when Sandy first sort of like formulated the idea, we were focusing primarily on military and law enforcement training. We had a contingent of civilians that would come to us, but they were usually connected to military and law enforcement in some sort of capacity. One of the things that we really were pretty adamant about was that at our Lake Forest facility, we didn't want to have any live fire. We wanted it to be 100% exclusively simulation-based training. Partly because we wanted to be able to recreate real world scenarios, but also if we did have new shooters, we didn't want there to be any risk of injury or anything like that, right? So, everything's being done on these simulators. And we, like I said, we had some people that had very limited experience with guns, but they were somehow connected. They were wives or husbands of, law enforcement officers. So we had sort of this, basic curriculum. A court case came out in 2014, which essentially opened up the possibility for civilians to get concealed weapons permits.
Right.
And they, at the time, we were under contract with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And they asked us if we would become CCW trainers. That there's a statutory requirement that every applicant go through a training course. And so we were, we said, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and we'll do it. We were actually somewhat resistant, to tell you the truth, but we went ahead and did it. That fundamentally changed the nature of our business. We're now, I would say, 90% civilian trainees. And one of the things, to put words in Sandy's mouth here, but one of the things that Sandy had identified within the weapons training community, it's usually what she would refer to as seminar-based training. People will go to a facility, they'll take a course, and then they may not take a course again for another 2 years, right? I mean, it's this limit. And then during the interim time, they're going to the range and they're self-studying, okay? She envisioned something that was far more akin to a martial arts program, where people were coming in on a regular basis, a weekly basis, for constant tactical training, and going beyond simply tactical training, but getting into use of force protocols and sort of the academic areas of this whole thing. So she had this sort of in her mind, training law enforcement, that's somewhat difficult to do. They're still seminar-based oriented. But when we started training civilians, she sort of globbed onto this idea. And that's been the development of our business. It's been having people join up as members, and they come in on a repeated basis, and a community has formed amongst them.
We borrowed this concept from watching our daughters go through martial arts, and we've got two daughters, and they're both first degree and third degree black belts. Mm-hmm. So we watch them go through the process of training on a day-to-day basis and becoming proficient at their skill sets. And that's kind of what we wanted with the firearms industry as well.
So Sandy, you're like an ideas person here, aren't you?
I am definitely a creative person.
Yeah.
Sandy, so I represent the roadblock that Sandy has to get through in order to get something done. I'm an attorney, and I think by definition, I'm very, very risk averse, right? So, and in fact, one of the things that I think we were talking about the other day, the vision that she has in anything, right? The vision that she has is usually not sufficient to get rid of the angst that I have regarding risk. Okay. So, which I think honestly, it forces me to be open to new ideas, and it
tames me a little bit.
Well, it keeps everything consistent, right? And, one of the things that we do here with our, weapons training is not a static thing, right? It changes. It's organic. As we learn more about the human body under stressful situations, as new case law comes up, and a lot of legal implications is based around our training protocols, we sort of are constantly altering that. And as a result, a lot of our training sort of has almost a democratic, component to it. We're all of the instructors, all of it. We're always sort of fleshing out new ideas.
We're constantly evolving, I guess would be the proper term, but evolving is the word that we use here a great deal.
Yeah, and I think without having Sandy's kind of push forward, okay, I don't know that we would have been willing to move.
No, literally by the necktie, I'm pulling him through. We got to go in this direction. It only took us 1 year to convince him to consider going into the VR business, literally the goggle business. And that's an aspect that we just added on not too long ago.
So I'm excited to see your facilities. I haven't had a chance to come over yet, but I would like to. I see that we have a couple more comments that Haley, if you could bring it. Okay, there's
tomorrow.
So you know him, this, yes. And so the new installation, is he talking about the VR headsets? Is that
that's above and beyond the headset.
Okay. Remember, well, so going back to the VR, and then I'll kind of go to the next level. So Sandy, one of the things that we identified with our simulators sort of early on was that there were physical limitations associated with them, or also some potential legal implications associated with them. So Sandy decided that, we need to build our own simulators.
Wow.
We need to become, essentially instead of technology users, we need to become technology providers. So she ended up creating an entirely new company, which is called the Orion Training System, and it's a proprietary VR-based defensive tactics simulator. So
it's focused specifically for the civilian market. There's a lot of simulators already in the market, but it's more for law enforcement, military use. This is the very first where it's really truly oriented to civilian self-defense, defensive training. Yeah,
and that the Artemis Defense Institute is a purchaser of that technology from Orion. I mean, we sort of work that direction. But.
Now, what Mauro is talking about is our 2-lane range that we just got the permit for to install a live range within our facility.
Do you remember we said at the beginning that we were very adamant that we didn't want to have any live fire?
Yeah, I heard that.
Facility? And again, this was me, grabbing onto that orthodoxy at a certain point, as we grew in members and in CCW trainees and everything else, Sandy came to the realization that it would be far more efficient and cost effective for us to, in fact, put a live fire, a system in our building. So that we just, as Sandy mentioned, we just got the
today was
permit.
Day 1 of construction.
Oh, wow. So yeah, look at that. You heard it here first on Critical Mass Business Talk Show.
Yep.
So Sandy, you went from wanting to open a bakery to being an innovator now in this industry that you were reluctant. I mean, when you changed your perspective, you really became committed, didn't you? I mean, you're going all in on this.
I thought I was going to set up a business for Steven to do so that I could go and enjoy doing nothing. Didn't quite turn out that way.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
So I embrace the fact that I completely lack ambition. Okay, and but I do know how to surround myself with truly great people.
Yes.
So I made sure that Sandy couldn't leave.
So do people come in who are not members? Are people able to just come in and use your facilities to train themselves and be trained on?
We are open to the public. However, the live fire is exclusively for our members only because we know how they shoot. We've watched them train in other aspects because they've committed to training with us on a regular basis. So we don't have to be as cautious as if a complete stranger would walk into our lab range.
So do you offer different courses to train people? How does the curriculum work?
Yeah, so there's actually the curriculum in and of itself is fairly broad, and there's several different sort of pathways to coming to Artemis. Some people come to us because of a neighbor or friend, whatever, and they
heard you here on Critical Mass Business Talk Show.
Right? Heard us on your podcast. And they're not, they certainly have no interest in becoming a member. In fact, they don't even know if they want to buy a gun, right? But they want to sort of see what it's all about. And typically speaking, for the vast majority of the people that come in, they'll go through what is called our pistol series course, which is a series of 3 classes that are done in a group environment. We do have the opportunity for people to come in and do private one-on-one training. There are some people that just prefer that, no, every single thing that happens in this building is done in the presence of an instructor. I mean, there's no self-study here. It's all done at a minimum of a 1-to-1 environment, maximum typically of an 8-to-1 environment. So that's one pathway that people come in. And then usually after they've done a couple of classes, they say, wow, it would be a lot more cost effective if I became a member, and then they become a member, and then we have different levels of membership, which basically it dictates how much access you have to the facility at any given month. Alternatively, I was mentioning concealed carry permit training. We are an approved CCW training provider, which means that if somebody were to go to the sheriff's department, put in an application to get a CCW, we're provided a list of potential places they can go to get their training. So they'll see our name on the list, and they come in specifically to take the state mandated class. And oftentimes, to be quite honest with you, oftentimes they come into that class thinking that their skill sets as a shooter are pretty good, that they've been shooting for years or something. They don't think that the class itself is even necessary. It's the functional equivalent to going to driver's ed or something like that. And typically by the end of that class, they realize that they really suck, and that I would say probably our largest driver of members comes from our CCW class. At the end of the class, they're usually saying, yeah, I need to sign up. I realize my situational awareness skills, my judgmental use of force skills, their shooting skills might be okay, but the professionalism at arms that go with carrying a gun, that's lacking, and they end up becoming a member as a result of that.
Now,
go ahead, Sandy.
Stephen talked a lot about the firearm and use of force, but that's not the only avenue in which we service our clients. I mean, our facility is geared towards anyone that's interested in learning a little bit more about self-defense and using this more so than anything else. I mean, self-defense could be used when you're driving a car, when you use pepper spray or a knife or a broom or a water bottle, whatever the case may be to defend yourself.
Sure.
Any tool can be used, but what we focus in on here is when and how and why we would use whatever force we would need.
I love that point. Thank you.
I would also say that in addition, and it is something that probably creates a little bit of a unique niche with us. So my law firm, we exclusively represent law enforcement officers, CCW holders, military personnel. And I do primarily Second Amendment jurisprudence. So a lot of times, the vast majority of people that are by definition law-abiding citizens don't have a criminal defense attorney that they may know business attorneys, they may know family law attorneys, right? But they don't typically, know criminal defense attorneys, especially criminal defense attorneys that specialize in Second Amendment jurisprudence, right? So there's sort of a unique connection in that because the laws are changing almost on a daily basis. A lot of them utilize us for kind of a pathway to legal representation if God forbid something were to happen.
So as we've had this conversation, I see Howard Wallace made a suggestion. I'd like Haley, if you could bring him back to the cat is out of the bag. You guys, better start baking out there now. To have some chocolate chip cookies in the reception area. Good idea. And then Mauro, you also made a comment, which I thought we should bring to the screen.
Yes.
So that kind of goes in line with what you were saying, Sandy. And then another one just popped up from Brenda. We could bring her on here. It's kind of lengthy, but let's.
Yeah, fantastic. Practice your fire.
Oh, well, thank you very
Yeah.
much, Brenda.
And I think Miss Lynn also chimed in about our women's program here. Our team of instructors are very friendly. Exactly. Thank you. We've got a great team. They take care of our clients. They know that our goal here is to be number one in customer service, because it's kind of tough to find in our industry. It's not something that we are known for. So
Yeah.
that's
And
kind of
Sandy, I have to go back to the origin story and say your vision of having, at least in the beginning, no firearms, no live rounds is really okay, but yet you want to have a defense training. It was really an out of the box thought that you have brought to life. Let's talk about the future. What's next for your two companies, maybe in your law practice, but what else is going on? What's the vision?
Sure. Well, Stephen talks about him being an influencer these days. So that is my goal, is I want him to become an influencer. So our focus on him is going to really push him out there, talk about the legal ramifications of owning a firearm or being in a self-defense situation. As far as the company is concerned, this location here in Lake Forest is a prototype. We're going to see if what we have provided is truly soup to nuts. And being able to cater to our clients within a certain diameter distance would make sense. And once we can prove this, then we hope to open up additional Artemises or Artemis size. We haven't decided what it's called on a rural basis, but our goal is to open up additional ones throughout the state of California. And we already have potential investors that would like to help us scale across the nation once we get to that point.
Wow, I think you are going to do it, you two. You seem like dynamos, and this has been, I said at the top of the show, it was going to be a good show, and you two have not disappointed. And thank you to everyone who has joined in on the conversation. If people maybe don't know how to find you online, let's say, how do they find Artemis Defense Institute online?
There are several pathways. Obviously, in traditional social media, we're on Facebook and Instagram as Artemis Defense Institute. Our website is, and a little complicated, adi.artemishq.com. There is, or I think we're on LinkedIn and, I think pretty much all social media platforms under Artemis Defense Institute. Sandy referenced, and this is kind of important, I suppose, too, USCCA, which is a self-defense insurance company. They had asked me about a year and a half ago to start making videos on their YouTube channel on Second Amendment jurisprudence, as well as, updates in court cases and things like that. That has an international audience, and like Sandy said, I'll get like 500,000 views on those videos, so I'm now officially an influencer. So we've got that as well. Yeah.
And you see what Pat said, right?
We did, and I also want to reference Adam. Adam Scheck was also on there earlier. I read yours. Thank you, Adam.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both for sharing this story with my audience and with your own community. This is fantastic to be able to showcase you here on the Business Talk Show this afternoon. And thank you for being prepared, being fashion coordinated, and being able to tell a great entrepreneurial story. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course. And thank you to everyone listening. If you're a new listener to our program, hopefully you'll check out some of the other shows. Steven and Sandy's episode joins our catalog. We have over 1,500 episodes in the catalog. Been doing this for 15 years. We focus exclusively on Orange County-based entrepreneurs and also nonprofit leaders. So if you are one or you know someone who could benefit from sharing their story with our audience, then I encourage you to tell them about the show. I'm Rick Franzi, RICFRENZI, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And just send us a message between Haley, our producer, and myself. We'll be happy to talk to you about having you on the show, like Steven and Sandy. I think a couple other messages might have come in. I see OC Dan said, there we go. Great job. Michelle.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Mark.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
And finally there. And
Cookies.
cookies. Okay. You are stuck now, Sandy. You got no choice.
Disclose.
Until the next until next time we're all together, I hope all of your business decisions move your company in a positive direction.
Thank you.